year alone, 1/3 of our homicides have involved victims or accused under the age of 20. 2 have involved accused persons under the age of 15 years. This fact is disturbing and demands that something must change. There is no rational explanation for why a 13, 14, or 15-year-old child should have access to illegal firearms, let alone feel compelled to use them.
Shock and grief tonight in Scarborough after an 18-year-old student was killed in what police describe as an execution at this school. The suspect, a 14-year-old student, and sadly, this is the latest act of violence involving Toronto youth. Toronto police pointing today to a disturbing trend in our city. 1/3 of Toronto homicides in 2022 involve people under the age of 20. To discuss the impact on our community and the supports that we need, we welcome to CP24 tonight Zaya Brown, founder and executive director of Think Twice, and Swabir Sharif, executive director of the Good Guides. Thanks to both of you. Zaya, you run an organization that focuses on gun prevention and rehabilitation. So what's happening right now? How do you make sense of these alarming numbers?
As I've spoken about many times, I think that what the city needs to do is focus on prevention and intervention in a way that not a lot of people talk about. So a lot of people think that locking up people without programming will take away the problem that we have. The problem is that we don't have any rehabilitation, culturally sensitive rehabilitation or rehabilitation programming within the institutions. So young men are going in gang involved and they're coming out gang involved. Young men are going in not gang involved and they're coming out gang involved. So without the appropriate programming, we're not able to address the gun or gang violence that's happening in the city. And there's a direct correlation with community violence and prison and jail issues. So for us, we advocate a lot for programming within corrections. So numbers are not going to decrease. Numbers are going to be increasing, as we've said over the last few years. There are many issues that need to be addressed, but it's going to have to take young people with lived experience who need to be involved in prevention and intervention strategies. Right now, a lot of people in the city, a lot of the wrong people are getting funding. A lot of people who think they know what the answers are, but they don't understand the gun or gang violence, period. So until we begin to fund the right people and support the right people, grassroots organizations that's on the ground, until we begin to support young people who are incarcerated, who do have lived experience, we're not going to see a change in the streets. And that's one of the biggest problems.
Swabir, I want to bring you in. You grew up in Scarborough, not far from where this school shooting happened. You told me about how you witnessed violence in your own community growing up. Tell us a bit more about that and why you think there's this growing number of young people turning to violence.
Yeah, for sure. Well, growing up, I grew up on the east side of Scarborough, and I witnessed lots of friends and classmates and people around me end up doing the wrong things. Maybe end up falling down the wrong track. And growing up, I felt like I saw the gaps in the service and some of the organizations and what they provide. And I kind of felt like maybe I saw what was needed, but it wasn't until my early 20s and I was able to found my own organization with its own specified mandate, where I was kind of able to put this in effect.
Yeah, tell us more about that organization and how that helps people on the ground.
For sure. Yeah, so the Good Guides is a provincially registered not-for-profit organization, and is an organization that I founded alongside some friends during the pandemic in the early 2020. We operate with a mandate, and it's very simple, and we love to put the youth in charge of the change. And this came from a dislike as a youth of being spoon-fed program after program, and instead seeing the value of encouraging, empowering, and educating the youth themselves on how to become the change. So the way we do this work is through our ambassador program. We recruit and mentor students right across the GTA on how to become the change and how they can create projects that could benefit their local communities.
And I want to bring in Natalie Comrie, student development worker at YouthLink in Scarborough tonight as well, joining us. Natalie, thanks for being with us. You work directly with families who've been impacted by gun violence. You heard Swabir there talking about education. How important is that piece in this puzzle?
It's extremely important. And, we have to look at, as much as I'm on the ground running with the students, we have to look at what the families are experiencing through these times. And education is so important for the families to get on what resources they can have, where can they go to access support. And we really need to take hold of that and see what we can do before any of this happens, before the gun violence affects these families. How are we helping them to get the supports that they need, the resources? Are they accessible? Are they in a place where families can really get the help that they need, whether it be, family counseling or parental skills, whatever they would need? What are the resources so that we can be more proactive instead of reactive?
So how can we do that? What are some of those big barriers?
Well, most of the barriers that we're seeing in regards to YouthLink pathways is transportation, the funds to make sure that the kids are able to get to school. But parents are also experiencing things like, getting their kids in sports, or, things like resources to give them the skills to get the better job so that they are not always working to put food on their table. There's so many barriers that parents are facing that it is hard. It is extremely hard to always be there for their kids.
So, Zwabir, you grew up in Scarborough. You experienced some of these challenges. Were there resources? Were there enough programs to help you get through this?
Well, there was, but I don't think they were the right type of programming. These kids within these neighborhoods, they respond better to people who look like them. They respond better to people who've lived the lives that they may have lived. And it comes down to addressing some of these issues with the holistic approach. It comes with ensuring that these youth and these families are fed at night. It comes with ensuring these youth have a job and they're not maybe pursuing the legal routes of providing for their families. But in a nutshell, there were the resources, but I don't think they were the correct ones for some of these specified communities.
Yeah, that's a really important theme that we keep hearing when we have conversations like this. We need more people with lived experience to be informing policy, to be helping out with programming. Zaya, what are your thoughts on this? When you work with people who are incarcerated, what do they need more of?
Okay, so when I'm working with youth in the community, they need more people who have lived experience, as you said. So what we need to do is we need to provide proper supports for young people who are incarcerated or who have lived experience so that they can be involved in the gun and gang prevention programming. So whether that be with youth, whether that be with children, and as the young brother said, they need to see people that look like them, but also that they can relate to. So who come from their neighborhoods, who come from the same struggles that they come from. A lot of times we think that it's just people that look like us, but no, that's not the case when it comes to young people, especially people that are in this particular population. They need to be able to relate to those people who've gone through what they've gone through. And that's why it's so important that we build up those young people, whether they're in jail, prison, or whether they're in the community.
And when we talk about resources and programming, Natalie, I want to ask you about the impact that Pathways has had in Scarborough Village in the last decade. Tell us more.
So, like you said, in the last decade, they've been around. And when they originated, the graduation rate was maybe 20%. As Pathways got there, they broke down the barriers of financial security. They added tutoring and mentoring, which is our social support, and the graduation rate went to 80%. So it's giving that, like mentioned before, the lived experience of us workers coming in there and really helping them get over those barriers and showing them a way out. So, and then the majority of those kids are going to post-secondary and making plans for their future that is more directed to what they need and what they want. And also with working with the families to get what they need, because a lot of that area is a lot of people that are migrating or immigrants that have come to our country for a better life, and giving them those skills that they can parent and also know how to build their children so that they keep them off the streets.
Swibir, what's your message to youth in our community who just don't feel like there's an out?
Yeah, I just want to let them know that there is an out, they have a voice, and it's just being able to use it. Youth have such amazing and wonderful ideas, and I think us as adults and even us as leadership, we really just got to pay attention to them and listen to them and allow them to create the change for themselves. So we're creating a self-reliant society and not one that's dependent upon services.
A really important conversation. We'll have to leave it there for now, but I so appreciate all of you coming on tonight and sharing your perspectives. Zaya, Swibir, and Natalie, thanks so much.
No problem. Thank you.